Hello, good morning, everybody. It's Lisa Shield, and I am here with my amazing husband, Benjamin Shield. As you all know, love and adore this man with all my heart. And we have been together for 19 extraordinary years, 19. And this man is I couldn't begin to say enough good things about him. I do mean this every single morning I wake up, and I feel so fortunate to be in a relationship with this amazing man. So, um, I am today, let's just see here. Um, all right. So today we are not getting any viewership, and I'm looking at that because it seems that something may be off here. Um, Let me just go to Facebook. I want to double check things um, because there may be an issue with the setup on this. So let me go ahead and just go into my group, my page here. Oh, now people are finding us. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and share this in a couple of places just so people know that we're out there. Um, I think that that would be a good idea. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and just share this in a few places if you all don't mind and can bear with me. Um, just a couple more places. I don't like to do this in the middle of a call, in the middle of a Facebook Live, but I think it's important today that we let people know. I'm not quite sure if anyone wants to put in the chat. Did you have trouble finding this? I have a new assistant, and we're in the process of setting things up and figuring out how to get everything running properly. So I'm going to go ahead and just post this. Something's off here. Share. And then let's just see here. More options and then share to a group. They don't make it easy anymore. Facebook keeps changing all these links and things, and they do not make it easy. So let me just post this. Oh, good. I think people are starting to find us now. So that's great. Just a couple more shares and then we'll be ready to go. Just a couple more places. Post and then one more, and we are good to go here. All right. So one last one. There we go. Okay. All right, everybody. So today, my husband and I, Benjamin and I, are going to talk about dating from a male perspective. And I really thought that this would be a wonderful, wonderful way for all of you um, be able to really hear from a male perspective what it's like for men to date out there, because it's not easy. It is not easy. And men go through a lot of challenges here. I'm going to, yeah, it's not easy for men to date. Okay, good. Okay, so let's dive in, babe. I want to talk about, um, you're a guy, and um, we women focus so much on our challenges, right? And how hard it is for us to be able to connect with you. And we feel pressured because we feel we need to be young and slim and beautiful. Like we have to be almost a supermodel to get the attention of a really great guy. There's a lot of pressure on us to be a certain way. And of course, many of us are not supermodels. We're not stunt, head turners. We're not, um, we may be attractive, but we're definitely not supermodels. We're not Playboy centerfolds or Max, and in some ways, because those are the ideals, it really is so hard for a lot of us to feel that good men, quality men are going to be attracted to us. I'm curious for you as a man, what are some of the pressures that are on you that you have to contend with?
I think it's first important to realize that men go into a date, particularly a first date, as nervous as a woman would, as insecure, um, as hopeful. He may have changed his shirt 3 times, looking in front of the mirror and giving him the pinch test of his gut and double, under his chin. Um, Men are equally concerned about how they show up. And I think men, in some ways, sure.
I'm going to pause you for a second and I'm going to push back a little bit. I think a lot of the women watching today would say, I don't believe that because I go on dates and the man hasn't put any attention into his appearance. It's like he went through the dirty laundry pile, did the sniff test, and threw on the least offensive shirt, didn't even put any thought into his appearance.
Well, I think first give him the benefit of the doubt. But on the other side of that coin is that the woman most likely is looking for the guardian of her soul. This is the most important thing in her life right now. She may have settled on career, like been very successful in her career. She may have been successful in so many areas of her life, except she doesn't have that wonderful partner, that guardian of her soul. So if this is the most important thing in her life, she's looking for a man where this is the most important thing in his life right now. He may have, gotten a good degree in school, in college, and landed a decent job. And what's missing for him is partnership, whether it's marriage or whatever form that takes. So if a man doesn't put a lot of effort into his profile pictures, um, into showing up with respect, because I think that dressing well, dressing decently on a date punctuates the importance of the date. It's not just like rolling out of bed and here's something else on the to-do list, or maybe I'll get lucky, or um, but it's it should be punctuated with importance, and dressing for that, showing up on time is with care and attention,
and consciously.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you said that men do the pinch test. They're, especially if a man is genuinely attracted, like there are men who are just in it for the chase. That's going to be a fact. There are some men who are just, they're just having fun. They're going online and it's like a kid in a candy store, right? And that's just a different mentality. Not right, not wrong. That's just where that man's level of consciousness is. Our internet is not doing well. Do you see how slow this is? Uh-oh. Boy, I don't know. Whoops. I don't know. It seems like the internet. It.
Good.
Okay.
Great.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Okay. Well, we'll just go on. If anything changes and you can't hear us, please let us know. Okay. So there are some men who are going to just use dating as a way, as sport, as a way to go out and, pick up women. And that's just their level of consciousness. That's where they're at in their journey. And some men, too, are not really wanting anything serious or committed. And they're entitled to be in that place in their life. That's just where they're at. But what Benjamin, I hear you saying is, that as women who are looking for the guardian of our souls, we have to be aware of that and make conscious choices ourselves that, okay, if some guy doesn't show up or shows up and he didn't put any care or thought into his appearance, then that may not be the right guy for us.
Right. Right. And a lot of guys are in it for the chase, are in it for the one night stand.
Mhm.
Um, and they'll use perhaps vulnerability to kind of insinuate himself with the woman to impress the woman of his gentleness, his sincerity. There's a difference in vulnerability. There's a vulnerability that you feel that a man has said the same story to 100 women the
Mhm.
same way. And there's a vulnerability where a man reacts and responds in the present moment.
So listen to this. What Benjamin's saying here is really important. Babe, can you say that again, please?
Sure. A lot of men with different motives, some good, some not, will use vulnerability on a date. And there's a difference between when it feels like a man has said the same story the same way to 100 different women, date after date, uh, to kind of open the woman's heart.
Give an example.
It could be that some event that happened, or a breakup that happened, or a passing of a loved one that happened, something that will the woman will um, identify with, respond to. It'll open her heart, uh, and suddenly the man seems much more attractive.
And he knows that.
Oh, he knows
He's
that.
doing it intentionally. Like he's literally, listen to this. He is literally opening up and telling you some story about how his dog got killed when he was a kid, or how his first girlfriend broke his heart, something to elicit a response inside of the woman. And he's conscious. He's aware of what he's doing. He knows.
Mhm. And there's a difference between that type of vulnerability and the type of vulnerability that happens in the present moment, that that he is responding to something that his date is saying, she is responding to something he is saying, and it's an organic process of vulnerability of each person in the context of developing trust and safety, sharing just a little bit more of themselves and seeing how that's received and responded to. And then seeing, going back and forth, getting deeper and deeper and deeper into that vulnerability, so that the first date or the first couple dates aren't just a laundry list of interview questions. Uh, and people leave just feeling like it was an empty evening, that there may be potential, but it was an empty evening. Yeah.
So it's really important what Benjamin just said. Many, many, many of you are wanting to know, how do I tell a man's sincerity, right? How can I tell if this is a guy who's really sincere, if he's for real, or if he's a fake? And what Benjamin just said is brilliant for us as women to know, that you really want to sit back and ask yourself, when a man is opening up to you and you're feeling like he's getting vulnerable, is he genuinely sharing a story in the moment, in the present moment? Maybe you shared about your dog is really sick, and you're very worried about, this dog that you've had for 14 years. And this man shares about the loss of his dog.
Right. And one way for the truth detector to see if a man is genuinely vulnerable is to be insatiably curious about what he's saying. So just using the example of his dog died when he was 14, and and you know it broke his heart. His heart is still broken. Being insatiably curious about asking that gentleman about that story, if he just says, "Well, the dog was old anyway," in other words, you know, deep deep down, it's still surface. You know?
Wow.
So being really insatiably curious could do two things. One, it can weed out those people that are just, giving the same story date after date, woman after woman. Or if someone is deeply touched by something, he will so welcome the curiosity of a woman, even on a first date, because these are things he can't share with his male friends. He's not going to share with his male friends that his heart was broken because of this or because of that. He could do it almost only with a woman. And it could happen even on the first date.
hmm Honey, one of the things that a lot of women are really upset by, and would love for you to talk about when we're looking at, dating from a male perspective, very often they'll go on dates and the man will just talk about himself the whole night. And there's no entry for the woman. They don't feel that there's any entry. Now I know for some women they're making the mistake that they really are just great listeners. That's what they do best, and they're not good at opening up. And so, these men are going to talk and talk and talk. But I'm curious when a good man does that, because I think there are always missed opportunities in dating, right?
Yeah.
And so I wish women could open up a little bit and give a man a chance when he's talking about himself a lot, and not just say he's narcissistic immediately and that he doesn't care to get to know me.
And there are narcissistic men.
Mhm.
There are men who go on a date after date or on texting after text or Zoom call after Zoom call to get their masculinity mirrored back to them. They may not even be in the market for a relationship, but they are hungry and insecure enough that they need that constant feedback. That if they give a story of how they overcame something or a moment of greatness time and time again, and the woman says, "Oh my gosh, you're wonderful," they need that.
So some men are just sitting there trying to wow and impress the woman.
Wow, and impress with the goal of having that married back to
Mhm.
him. Like,
Okay.
what an amazing man you are. And then they're off to the next one.
Mhm.
Um, some men will give stories because they're nervous
Mhm.
and they don't know how to just talk, speak with a woman. And so they'll say, well, I do this in my work and it's this and that and that and that. And it's boring for both of you, but it's really out of sincerity that the
Oh.
man is really he's not only trying to share himself with you know in a moment of nervousness, but he's also trying to establish trust and safety. I mean, even on our first date, 19 years ago, I think any man has to prove first that he's not an axe murderer, you know, as uh, and that there's a certain because these are two strangers. You may
Mhm.
have exchanged text or back in our days, email, or a phone call, um, but he has to prove himself first. And sometimes a man will overly prove himself
Mhm.
by seeming bland or telling stories that don't have a great deal of depth.
Honey, when you say that the man feels the need to prove himself, I know you feel very strongly that way. Do you feel that all good men, like all good men on a date, if they really like a woman, they're trying to show her that they're a safe man? that they want, that they know very clearly that women have an impression that men can be very unsafe? And do you feel like good men, like really good guys, if they like a woman, that there's a part of them that feels he needs to prove that?
I do. And in proving that, they could come across very bland. Usually the bad boys, the guys with attitude, or who may even be mildly abusive on a date. Um, you know, um, where there may be more sparks flying, because this guy is seems like a high testosterone, dominant male. But a good man uh, will really want to establish that trust and safety, and
Why?
because he knows that women have had a history of dates and relationships where it hasn't been safe, and that these are two strangers, two people that have almost randomly met. Out of all the people on the planet, these people have been brought together at a Starbucks, sitting across from each other, and just planted there, you know, out of nowhere, from the internet, from the ethers, and suddenly they're supposed to have a relationship, like they're on a date, like they know each other almost, or they deeply wanted to get to know each other, and they don't even know each other well enough to want to know if they want to get to know each other well enough. So, you know, if a man proves that he's trustworthy and safe, it opens up the rapport, the contract of what could be talked about, the vulnerability that could be shared, and the possibility of two people really knowing each other, other than just glib talk and cliches and double entendres and uh, things like that. So establishing that foundation.
And real talk. I mean, I know when we had our first date, um, it was magical. I know you are such a brilliant connector. Like you understand heart connection better than any human being I've ever known. And that first date with you was a revelation. It was so magical because I had the consciousness, the awareness, right? Maybe my contribution to it, I think you were more sophisticated and you led that. You created with the bell jar, creating that safety that you created on that first date with me, and that connection from the moment you walked in and looked into my eyes and you said, "It is so nice to meet you." From that moment on, I felt so safe to be with you and to talk to you. And you led that, you created that. But I knew from the moment we met that this was real, and there was a genuineness. I think that's, most of us, when we look into our hearts, or we really feel in our hearts, if we're not just doused in fear, but we can tell something that's real and authentic when we see it, you know?
Right. And you mentioned bell jar. For those people that don't know the term, the way we use it is that when two people are sitting together across from each other, it's as if the goal is as if a bell jar is over the two of you and nothing else exists. So, from a man's point, I'm talking about what a man can do, but it goes both ways. Like if man is sitting across from a woman and she can create that intimacy from the first moment, that is magical because he doesn't have that with a guy. There's a TV going in the background, there's cleavage walking by, there's just all of these things. Um, and so a woman can create it, but she could also do the opposite. She could be checking her phone often and or being distracted by other things. And it's, you know, we don't grow out of it. We could imagine, I'm manual therapist. I specialize in treating newborn to age 2, which is what I've taught for decades. And we all may have known the instance where a mother is with a baby, and she's just devoting her attention to that baby, and then the telephone rings or the doorbell rings and her attention is drawn away, even though she's not holding the baby any differently, and the baby could start crying inconsolably. Well, we don't grow out of that. We pretend that we do, that things like that don't care. They do.
That they don't matter.
That they don't matter, excuse me.
Mhm.
So, you know, if a man or a woman are in deep conversation and then they get a a, a, a bing that a text came in or an email came in or a phone call came in, and that connection is broken, it's almost like we're in a deep conversation with someone, a really deep conversation, and then suddenly someone cuts the line. And you can imagine how you would feel if you were on that other end and someone just cut the line. So maintaining that intimacy, it's only for an hour or an hour and a half, and it may lead to 4 hours, if that intimacy isn't broken. But if intimacy is broken from either the man or the woman, it's a dreary evening, and suddenly the importance of the evening and the importance of the other person is really diminished.
Yeah. I'm so glad I was present with you on that day. Wow. But yeah, I mean, even in our relationship, when you come in, I try to make the effort to stop what I'm doing and then, or complete whatever it is I'm doing and then give you my full
Yeah.
attention. Um, yeah. And just be present with you. I love what you just said. That was so beautiful. One of our listeners, Susan, wanted to know if there was a process that brought you this level of awareness, or have you always been that way?
Well, we learn, and sometimes the best way to learn is from mistakes.
There's a story there, Susan.
But a very positive way that I learned was when I've put together 4 books over the years. And my very first book and one of my very first interviews I did for the book was with Norman Cousins, who wrote Anatomy of an Illness. And at the time, and a movie was made about it with Ed Asner, and he had cured himself from a debilitating physical disease that would have left him um, um, kind of stuck in without movement of his entire spine. And the only movement he would have had would be at the very top segment. It's called ankylosing spondylitis, an inflammatory condition that works from the spine up, from the hips up. And it is very rare that it's ever cured by any means, managed but still progressive. And he cured himself with laughter, watching Marx Brothers movies and things like that, that positive thought. And he had an office at the at UCLA for some reason in the nursing building. That's probably the only place he had an office. And I walked in for the interview, and if you could imagine a snow globe, one of those glass globes being shaken, there were papers. There were 2 assistants. There were 2 women there, his secretaries or assistants, and papers were flying almost in the air. The phone was ringing off the hook. It was pandemonium. There were papers on the ground, being organized, and they were moving nonstop. It was just, I'm thinking, how am I ever going to conduct an interview in this situation? So when the time came, I was ushered into the back office, and he was there, and clearly he had as much to do as the women in the front office had to do. But when I walked in, nothing else existed except he and I. And I don't even remember, fortunately, I recorded it because I don't remember what was said. I just remember how I felt. And that stayed with me. from that point on.
Wow. And so that's where you developed the bell jar, because you felt like you were in a bell jar, the two of you.
Yeah.
That's how that technique came about,
Yeah.
that we use in our 12-week course
Yeah.
called I just, for anybody who doesn't know, I do a 12-week course for women who are just looking to find their Benjamin. And I show you how to find this kind of guardian of your soul relationship in 12 weeks. So it's really incredible. And we're teaching something that Benjamin and I really feel blessed to have. There was no luck involved in this. Both of us did a tremendous amount of work on ourselves and in our lives before we met. And we were ready to have this. And so that's what we show you how to do. Benjamin works with me. I created the course, and he helps me out with some of the coaching Q&A calls, and the women enjoy seeing us together, and they love getting Benjamin's perspective. So yeah, honey, for, I want the women to know that you can create that connection. You don't have to wait for the man to do it. Benjamin did it, set the foundation for that on our date, but you can just as easily learn these techniques and go out and do them on your dates, right? You can be the invitation, like Norman Cousins was for Benjamin, and then Benjamin was for me. So you can be the one who creates that space for that, that magical connection to happen, right? Um, so tell me, you're a guy, you're getting ready for a date, you're a good guy, you're not a player, you're not looking for, just to get a woman into bed. You are a man who genuinely wants to find the guardian of your soul. You're ready for that. And you're preparing for a date. You're getting ready. And there is this woman, you've had some email correspondence, you've even done a Zoom call, and you like her. And I'm talking about like in capitals, there, you are really excited. Tell everybody what's going on. What are some of the fears and what's going on in your mind?
Well, how we would respond on the first date may be completely different how we would respond by the third or the fourth date, because the more that we like someone, and women probably experience the same thing, that the more shy we are. It's almost like a direct proportion, that the more we're really seeing potential in this, and we just want to be careful.
And that's for all guys. That would be for, Jake Gyllenhaal. That would be for George Clooney, any man, right? Any good guy who's really into this woman.
Yeah. And so, the woman may feel that, well, he may not be that interested in me because he's overly cautious, he's overly polite, he, you know, um, doesn't seem like he's at ease. And so there may not be sparks flying. But, as trust and safety and rapport and the expansion of the contract of what can be discussed and shared, um, received, um, as people get to know each other, sparks may fly the fourth, fifth date, or even the second month. But if the guy seems like a good guy, I would, and nothing, and the date just seemed like it was a little bland, I'd give him another chance, because speaking as a guy, that if he seems bland on that first date, it may be a sign that he really, really likes you.
Oh my gosh. Are you all hearing this? I really want you all to take that in again, because that's really revelatory. For a woman, that's revelatory. So if you're, don't just discard a really great guy if he has a wonderful career, if he is successful in his life, if he has wonderful friendships. If you're looking at this man and pretty much across the board, there's, a lot of check marks, but the date is a little bland and he's not wowing you, give it another chance because that man may just be nervous and he may really like you.
Yeah. And I think giving it another chance warms him up, like, well, oh, she likes me. So I could be a little bit more of myself. And it may take, for some guys, it may take a while to really see his full personality. I think it took you some time to see my full personality because I was still kind of really, I knew that I really, really liked you. And I think I was a bit cautious. I knew it was something that I wanted to last for the long run. So I wanted to be very respectful, very mindful. And that can come across as, you know,
Nerdiness.
nerdiness. Yeah. Like I'll use the term bland for lack of better vocabulary. But it could just be a guy who wants to be incredibly respectful, incredibly mindful, and also aware that this woman has probably been hurt by a lot of guys, tricked by a lot of guys, um, deceived, uh, and he wants to be different. And he may go so far the other direction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There were some very sweet little moments in our getting to know each other where um your shyness came through, or your not shyness, but your ner oh, your nervousness came through. And they were so dear to those moments. I talk about, we talk about them. I don't mean to embarrass you when I bring them up. They were beautiful moments for me because they were genuine moments of vulnerability. And you were so, I couldn't even imagine that a 50, like a handsome, successful, man like you could actually have a moment of um, insecurity or whatever. It was just so sweet and endearing for me. And there were also moments where you met me with, I was vulnerable and you met me with your vulnerability. And any show of vulnerability, especially just from a man, a real man like you, is so beautiful. But yeah, I never, all of that to say, I didn't know that you were nervous in the beginning when we first met. You were so lovely and such a gentleman that yeah, I didn't know.
And some men will be genuinely nervous and act genuinely nervous. On this last Thursday's call, a lovely woman in the group, in the emotionally naked dating group, um, the Q&A call, um, said that she was 20 minutes late for this first date. And it was she rushed into the bar where the man was waiting, and he was this very handsome, tall man. And she came up to him and said, I'm here. And he said, oh, you look so beautiful. And I'm so nervous, and
Yes.
that that phrase, not so much the you're so beautiful, but I'm so nervous, just cracked open that date
Yeah.
to possibilities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was such a great share. I'm so glad that you brought that up. It's amazing some of the beautiful shares. Well, how many incredible experiences the women share like that. Um, and what's so beautiful about that share is not is the what is possible for this woman, but also the other women in our group were able to see. Now they'll go on dates, and they'll be looking for those moments of genuineness and know that those are the men they should be paying attention to. A man that would say something like that and make himself that vulnerable, knowing that she was vulnerable because she arrived late and she was, already feeling exasperated. But that gives a reference point for all the women in the group now to listen for those moments like that, because those are the men you want to pay attention to.
Right. And there are some things that seem like deal breakers that are just the man being uncertain, insecure, or wanting to do the right thing. Like when the bill comes, um, it's tradition, at least in my generation, that the man would just pay, um, and happy to do so. Um, and it's a masculine thing to do. In today's dating world, um, you don't know. A man doesn't know if a woman really feels she wants to pay for half of it. You know, uh,
Yeah.
and so he may fumble, and the fumble may seem like, oh, he's being cheap or something like that, where there
Yeah.
may be a deep consideration, like, what do I do? What's the right thing? Um, you know, um, so sometimes those moments where it just seems like, oh, he didn't just reach for the check, what kind of, cheap SOB, but it may come from, give him another chance. If it seems to be a pattern, you could express it in uh, a very sincere way. I love it, or it really turns me on when a man pays for, you know, dinner, and men just want to make women happy.
Or even treats me to dinner.
It treats me to dinner.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's a better term.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And wow. When I when I hear these things, I think about how many missed opportunities there are in dating. And one of the things I really work with my clients on is how not to miss these opportunities, because when you're approaching dating, not with a list of expectations and black and whites, and this is right and this is wrong, and this is how my guy has to show up and behave, and where there's more room for humanness and error, um, there's compassion, right? There's compassion for both people. And in that place, this can happen. Something like this can, spring
Yeah.
from that kind of compassion.
Yeah. And I think there's so many advantages of today's dating world with all the apps and websites and ways to connect.
Mhm.
But at the same time, it's easy for someone to say next,
Yeah.
because, there's, 100 other guys that they could swipe on.
Well, and not just that, because he fumbled when the bill came, and that triggered your insecurity that, you're not worth it. You're not good enough for a man to treat you to dinner. And then, yeah, and then you just go away feeling wounded and hurt instead of saying, oops, taking a deep breath and saying, maybe he does want to treat me to dinner and he just doesn't know that that's something I would love for him to do. Right.
Or he may have been chastised
Yeah.
by, for doing that
Mhm.
and being overly cautious. And um,
And the right guy is just looking for ways to impress a woman. Right. And especially if she doesn't say it in a demanding way. Right. If a woman goes back to the guy and she's like, well, you know, I would have gone on a second date with you, but it's like, I really feel a man should pick up the bill. You know, a man is going to feel shamed for that. But if a woman said, I would love a second date, I would love to do that. And Benjamin, something that really makes me feel like a woman when I'm in a man's company, that so turns me on is when a man treats me to dinner. I'm so appreciative of that. How would you feel if you heard that from a woman?
oh, I'd feel like I was 10 feet tall,
Mhm.
and I couldn't wait for the next date where I could treat the woman and she would be so appreciative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We actually had another woman who just graduated from our course. And what was amazing is she came on the call and she had coffee with a guy and she really, really liked the guy a lot. He was terrific, but he fumbled when it came time to paying for the coffee. And she was ready to just write him off. And I said, no, I said, you really liked him. And there was something unclear. There was a fumbling, right? He fumbled the ball. And I said, if you really want to learn from this experience and you're really being a naked dater, that's what we call the women in my course, then you would say to him, I'm curious about what happened there. Yeah, in that moment when you asked me who would get the bill, um, or who would, buy the coffee, I'm really curious what happened there because I saw that it was an awkward moment. And so she did it. And he came back and said, the truth is, I always think of that first meeting as just two friends meeting and deciding. And then if we go on a date, a real date, then of course I would treat you. And he then messaged her back and said, I would still love to buy you that cup of coffee. So, she gave him an opportunity and he stepped up and was re- willing to do that. He wanted to. And one thing I will say to women, a lot of women feel put out if they have to actually ask for what they want from a man. They just somehow expect men to know, like we're all women are the same or something. And there's a rule book that applies to all of us, which there isn't. Um, the truth is, you have to voice your needs to a man, or he'll never know because your needs, you may need Louis Vuitton and Gucci and fancy things. And another woman may love, just a nice dinner and some flowers and candy. So men have to figure out, but you're going to have to ask, and you have to learn how to ask in a wonderful way. And if you ask and then a man says, of course I can do that, you don't then turn around and say, nope, next, because you resent having had to ask for it. And I see women doing this all the time. They will tell the man where he might have slipped up. But then when he comes back and wants a second chance, she says, no, don't do that.
Mhm. Right.
Yeah.
Right. I glanced at the comments
Yeah.
and Liz
Yeah. What did Liz?
Liz asked if a man shares too much on the first phone call, uh, is that okay? He said our messages he felt safe in sharing some of his past and how he
Mhm.
started his spiritual journey. It could be fine if it feels genuine and organic. Um, I think one of the downsides of the new age male
Mhm.
is that there could be a narcissism where they just want to talk about their story and themselves, and it doesn't really it's not so much conversation but a monologue. And so it really depends. The sharing is really about letting someone know who you are, but it's also about opening up the communication between two people. So if someone is just talking about the same story they would talk about to everyone, again, that could be narcissism. It could also be nervousness. We don't know. It's always worth a second chance, but there is that new age narcissism that um, we want to watch out for. And for men, it's a bit feminizing. Well, I don't shouldn't say feminizing, but it's lacks masculinity when they're so vulnerable on the first date and they just talk about that vulnerability. And it's not opening a conversation, but it's just pouring out their heart. That's not good either.
Well, and she said, he said from our messages that he felt safe sharing some of his past and how he started
Oh,
his
that's
spiritual
great.
journey.
That's great.
So, Liz, it's very possible that you set that precedent, that
Mhm.
you really opened up a space where he felt comfortable sharing those things. So, um, if it felt like it was too much, I would definitely put that in a file, but he may really have just felt comfortable opening up to you in a way that he hasn't felt comfortable opening up to other women.
Yeah, and definitely not other men. So you may have been a drink of cool water in a desert for him, where there was just no one to share this with. And finally, there was someone he could share it with because he couldn't share it with his guy friends.
Mhm. Yeah. So Barry asks, with someone cautious, is it normal for them to take 4 or 5 days to reach out between communications after a first date with an apology for being a poor correspondent? Where is the line between cautious and disinterested? His second chance away.
Well, I think that common courtesy is to contact someone at the very least after first date saying it was wonderful to meet you. And, we had I had a great time. And then, two people can decide. But I think that's a common courtesy. But I also think it's courtesy for a woman to reach out to a man after a first date and say, I had a wonderful time. You know, I thought you're a great guy and I hope you have a beautiful day. That will just light up a man, light a man up,
For the right man.
the right man.
Mhm.
Exactly. For him to get positive feedback from a woman that he didn't screw up, that she likes him, she really likes him. It means the world to him.
Oh my gosh, that's so good. Okay. Um, Barry, it's very possible too that people, that look, he reached out and there's no rule book on these things. There really isn't. So you can't take one thing like him waiting 5 days and being a poor correspondent. He did reach out to you again. So he is interested and he may be a poor correspondent. He may not be good. So give him the benefit of the doubt. If it's something that keeps going on, you can talk to him about it again in a very inviting way, make it an invitation. I really want you to know if there's any hesitancy, if you think you'll be, for why you're a poor correspondent, right? Like maybe he thinks that he's going to be bothering you or he doesn't want, maybe texts feel sometimes like an imposition to him.
Or he's seeming over anxious. He doesn't want to appear over anxious.
Yeah, there's lots of reasons why he may be afraid. Like when I know there was a long time when texting first became fashionable where I just felt like, oh my gosh, I can't text people. Like that's such an immediate intrusion on a person. And I was actually concerned about the whole idea of texting because um, I just felt like it was intrusive. Nobody knows that about me. People may think, gosh, or have thought, God, she doesn't respond, or why doesn't she text, but it was really intrusive for me. So we don't know why people do the things they do. We know how it feels to us because it triggers our insecurities or it brings up stuff for us. But one of the things we have to learn how to do, especially in the early stages of dating, is that you must learn how not to make assumptions. You have to. So many of us operate under just wild assumptions. Something happens and we just assume that we know what's going on. For anybody who has never read the Four Agreements, go read it. It is a game changer. It's by Don Miguel Ruiz. Um, it's one of the most widely popular self help books ever written. And it's brilliant. If you can just learn how not to take anything personally and not make assumptions, man, your dating would be night and day. If that was going on both sides of the date, what a game changer that would be, right? I mean, that takes all the masculine, feminine, everything out of the way, all the little stuff. And it's just two people really genuinely sitting in this open space and with this beautiful opportunity to just try to make that connection. I love simplifying things because if you can reduce things to their common denominator, their simplest form, imagine going on a date, two people, you're sitting under the bell jar, your hearts are open, you're wildly curious about each other, and you're not making assumptions or taking anything personally. That's the recipe for a great date.
Yeah. And we started this conversation by, you said, well, what if I'm not a supermodel? Or what if I'm not this? Or what if I'm not that? And the bottom line is how a man feels with a woman, being in a woman's company. That is the bottom line, the most important thing for man. So a woman doesn't have to have the perfect figure. She doesn't have to have the perfect career. She doesn't have to have the perfect history. It's how a man feels in her presence. And and it's the same for a woman with a man. And that could lead to people finding the perfect partner where it's nothing like they had pictured it. Like they had idealized, well, he's going to be 6'2". He's going to, have all of his hair, he's going to have a six pack. He may have, instead of a six pack, he may have a keg. But, it's how two people feel. Because if you extrapolate that 5 years, 15 years, 30 years down the road, what's important isn't that someone had looked like a supermodel 15 years ago or 5 years ago, but what is it going to feel like, in these years to come? And if the feeling is just like, I'm so comfortable with her, I've never been so comfortable, I deeply respect this person, I treasure who she is, that's what's important.
Wow, I'm going to leave it on that note. That was gorgeous. That was absolutely magnificent, honey. Yeah. We want to thank everybody who came today. Barry said, I was deathly afraid of putting him on the spot. Thank you for answering the way you phrased bringing up his hesitancy to him is great. That's wonderful, Barry. Good luck with that. Good luck with that. And just keep practice opening your heart to men. And like Benjamin said just now, men are going to feel that open heart. They're looking for that open heart. And, when they find a woman whose heart is truly open, they will open their hearts to us, those really good men like my husband. And I know, Benjamin, you are a remarkable human being. And I know, believe me, I know what I've got here. But I also want to just end with telling all the women that there are men out there like my husband. I've met other great men. Many of them are the partners of the women who have done my course. And I want you to know that these men are out there and that you can have a relationship like this. So please, if you're interested, go to lisashield.com. You will find the link there. Click it to watch my free 45-minute presentation. If you like what you hear, we can jump on a quick call, and me or a member of my team will talk to you about how you can attract your Benjamin. This has been our greatest joy. We will be back next Sunday at the same time with a wonderful new subject for you. Also, if you have some ideas that you would like us to explore on these calls, please do me the favor of dropping me an email, lisa@lisashield.com. I'm going to put that in the chat here, lisa@lisashield.com, and drop me an email and give me suggestions for topics that you would like for Benjamin and me to explore. And I do 3 Facebook Lives a week. So I do this one on Sunday morning with Benjamin called Getting Inside the Right Male Mind at 10 a.m. Mountain Time on Sundays. I also do another one. This week's Monday call will be canceled. I have a dental appointment. But that is at noon from 12 to 12 p.m. Mountain Time on Mondays. That's called Lunch with Lisa. And then I also do a Tuesday evening call This week's call is going to be amazing. My client Julene got married 2 years ago, and I will be interviewing her and her amazing husband, Andy, on that call. So don't miss that. That is on, she's a wildly wonderful success story. And that one will be Tuesday from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. Mountain Time. And I think that's it. All right, everybody. Love to you all. Open your hearts. Have compassion for one another. Just know that man sitting across from you on that date, if he is attracted to you and he's a really good man, he is nervous as hell, just like you are. He wants to impress you just as much as you want to impress him. So please, please, please have compassion. Don't be too quick to write people off. They're not going to show up and wow you right out of the starting gate because they're not playing a game. And if it feels too good to be true, it is. With a kind man like Benjamin, it's going to come from the heart and it will feel genuine. There will be awkwardness, there will be moments of imperfection, but just give it another chance. Give it a chance to grow if he looks good. All right. Lots of love to everybody.